Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. What I have for you today is we are going into Alberta, Canada, and I'm going to give you the CRANDALL Lake incident where 4 people who were camping had a Sasquatch encounter. Now, I got the audio from the Sasquatch archives in Todd Prescott, and Mr. Thomas Steenburg graciously allowed me to use the audio from when he was at the 1997 Sasquatch Symposium in Vancouver, British Columbia. So before I get into the video, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the location of this area. So you guys can see the CRANDALL Mountain Campground right there. You guys can see how much surrounded it is by mountains, forests, lakes, rivers. It is very conducive to a creature like a Sasquatch to being there. There are mountain lions, there are black bears, there are grizzly bears, there's plenty of game, plenty of prey items. So like I was saying, this area right here is a perfect area. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in there and show you guys the campground itself. The campground is right here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it to the north so we orient north to south. And right here, guys, is where this incident occurred. Right there. So, that's the area. You guys see how majestic it is. No problem in my mind about this area holding a creature or several creatures. Walking through, traveling through those valleys. You see how far those valleys go? They're all forested. So let's go ahead and get into this video.
The CRANDALL Campground incident occurred on May 24th, 1988. That's the Victoria Day long weekend holiday up here in Canada. Many people, mostly local people who live near there, almost always refer to the place as the CRANDALL Lake Campground. I myself always call the place CRANDALL Lake. But the proper name is simply CRANDALL. The campground is located on the west bank of the Blackstone Brook in Waterton Lakes National Park, which is located in the southwest corner of the province of Alberta. To get there, you must drive 7 kilometers, 4.5 miles, northwest of Red Rock Canyon Road until you see the turnoff to the CRANDALL Campground on your left. The area is wonderful high mountain wilderness, rich in wildlife. Deer that have grown used to people come down out of the mountains and will eat out of people's hands, and quite often they'll steal food, you name it. Black and grizzly bear and mountain lion are often seen in the hills around CRANDALL. On the Victoria Day long weekend 1988, 2 couples, Susan Ray Adams, her husband, Scott Stones, and another couple, Darren Gillis and his girlfriend, Shannon Sanko, occupied campsite C3 in CRANDALL Campground. The weather over the previous couple of days had been wonderful. No rain, no precipitation, hot, sunny. It was a beautiful long weekend, and it's been a long time since we've had a nice Victoria Day long weekend in Alberta. All 4 were enjoying themselves and each other's company. Early Monday morning, between 12:50 a.m. and 1 o'clock in the morning, something happened to these 4 people which they will never forget. They were playing cards at their picnic table when Scott and Susan decided it was time to turn in, and they were going to grab their toothbrushes and go down the pathway to the public washroom facilities and brush their teeth. The other couple remained at the table and were going to wait for them to return. They had just picked up their stuff and they're going down to the trail when they noticed that something was standing on the trail between them and the public washrooms. And when they approached it, it made a grunting noise at them. Susan, being a very nervous type and very afraid and easily frightened generally, immediately stopped. But her husband got impatient and said, "Relax, it's only a deer." Grabbed her hand, started pulling her down the trail. Well, then it grunted again. Now, she yelled something in the area of a holy blank blank bang. That's a bear, it's not a deer. And she pulled out of her husband and ran back towards the campsite. Now, the other 2, once they heard her yell bear, they stood up. Shannon said something, "Let's calmly move towards the cars," but it was a free fall for the cars. It was scrambling. They all ran to the cars. Scott, he kept his eye on it, and he slowly backed up on the trail, and the thing he said moved off to the left. Now, they'd gone into the cars by this time, and when Scott slowly came down, he tried to get into the car with his wife, but she had locked the doors and wouldn't let him in. Now, so he ended up in the car with Shannon Sanko, the other guy's girlfriend, and he ended up in the car with his wife, Susan. Now, they turned on the headlights of one of the cars. The cars were sitting back to back. They turned on the headlights of one of the cars. They didn't see anything. Now, the cars were sitting here. Here's the campsite, site C3. There's the trail to the washrooms. And the cars were parked on this driveway, back to back. One car facing that way, one car facing that way, in the general area where the thing moves off to the left. Now, he turned on the headlights of the car. He didn't see anything. He rolled down the window and yelled to them, to the other car, to turn on their headlights, which they did. And about a second after the lights were on, this thing walked into the area over in the woods, about 5 feet into the woods, into the area illuminated by the lights. So all four of them were watching this thing as it crossed the area illuminated by the lights, right to left, and it was in sight for, I'd say, 5 to 6 seconds. Now, Scott automatically knew what it was. He said, wow, that's incredible, you know, and he yelled, you know what that was? Yes, and they went on from there. And they thought they would go around, and they suggested they go and get in the car and go and see if they could see it again. Susan didn't want to have any part of this. As a matter of fact, she wanted to lay on the horn and wake up every camper in the area and get out of there. Well, they calmed her down, and they did go wandering around trying to see if they could see it again. Now, what happened is they ran into another vehicle with 4 people in it, and 3 of these people said they had also seen something near the washroom area where this thing was first seen by them. Now, these 4 people did not hang around, and they did not report the incident, and we have no idea who these other 4 people were. Now, they only went down the trail a little ways before they saw it. The next day, now this is what really makes it interesting, unlike many cases, these 4 people actually reported the incident to the warden's office the following day. And Park Warden Alan Dibb came out to investigate and ask them questions. Now, the following August, Susan Ray Adams telephoned me to report what she and the others had seen, and I arranged to meet all 4 of them so they could be interviewed. She also gave me the name of the park warden who looked into the matter the next day, and his name is Alan Dibb. I went down to Waterton Lakes before I interviewed the 4 and talked to Alan Dibb about what he thought of the whole matter. He told me that as far as he is concerned, these people must have seen a bear or been the victims of a hoax. In other words, he does not believe in the existence of the Sasquatch. However, he was very much impressed with the fact that no matter how hard he tried to convince them that they had seen something other than a Sasquatch, these people were adamant and would not be dissuaded about what they had seen. Alan Dibb was willing to let the matter drop after talking to the 4, but Darwin Gillis insisted on making out a written report. Alan Dibb told him it wasn't necessary, but Darwin insisted, and a copy of which was given to me. And I have it here if anyone cares to look at it. When I went to the Stones's home, all 4 bombarded me with questions about the Sasquatch mystery in general. I learned that both the women are school teachers in Calgary, while both men work as engineers. I interviewed each one of them separately in a different room. And here's a brief overview of what they told me and some of the questions I asked. Like in general, I started off easily. What time did this take place? Susan, 10 to 1 in the morning. Scott, 1 in the morning. Darren, 12:50 a.m. Shannon, 1 in the morning. Distance, how far were you from the creature when you saw it the first time? Susan, 10 feet. Scott, 10 to 15 feet. Darwin, non-applicable. Shannon, non-applicable because they were sitting back at the picnic table and they didn't see it the first time. Note my own measurements of the area based on where Susan and Scott said they were to the point of where the subject was. I think the distance was actually closer to 55 or 60 feet, not 10. That's still darn close. What distance from the creature the second time when they were in the cars? Susan said 30 to 35 feet. Scott, 45 feet. Darwin, 20 to 30 yards. He also mentioned that the thing was actually about 5 feet into the trees. And Shannon, 20 feet maybe. My own measurements taken at the location based where the cars were parked to where the creature was seen. This is a map that Susan drew for me the next day. It basically shows you where the cars were located in relation to the picnic table and the trail, and the fact they were back to back. My own measurements based on where they were parked to where the creature was seen in the headlights from the closest car to the tree line is 65 feet. And from the car to the creature, I would say it was more in the area of 97 to 100 feet. That's the area they were looking at, and I took that photograph of where approximately the car was, and this is where they saw the thing. The subject was, if positioning is correct, slightly uphill from the witnesses when seen. Also, there is some dead ground between the subject and the witnesses. So what I mean by dead ground, that term, you got a hill, a little bit of gully, and another hill, so there's ground in between you can't see. What was it doing? Susan told me it was just standing there looking at them. Scott, it was standing on the path looking at them. Then it made a snorting sound. Darwin, walking away from the car at an angle. Shannon, it was just standing there. No, Shannon seemed to refer to the first sighting of the subject on the path. Why, I do not know, since she at the time was with Darwin back at the table. However, she did say, at the time Susan yelled, "Bear." She did look in the general direction of the path and saw what she described as a dark shadow against the tree. I asked them what was their first impression of what they saw. Susan, I thought it was a bear. And of course, she yelled, "It's a blank, blank bear," so that's what she thought. Scott, I didn't believe it. But when I saw it in the headlights, I knew it was a Sasquatch. Darwin, at first I thought it was a practical joke. Shannon, scared. I thought it was a bear. Then I asked them, how long did they see it for? The second time. Susan, she said 1 minute, maybe 2. Scott, 10 seconds the first time, another 10 seconds the second time. Darwin, 3 to 4 seconds. Shannon, 10 to 20 seconds. No, interesting that Susan estimates the subject was in view for a longer period of time than the other 3. I do know of all 4 witnesses, Susan is the most frightened. Maybe the incident just seemed longer to her. But her estimation of how long they were looking at it is quite a bit longer than the other 3. Was it upright? Did it ever go down on all 4s? Susan, upright, never went down on all 4s. Scott, upright, never went down on all 4s. Darwin, never saw it go down on all 4s, upright on 2 legs. Shannon, it was upright. I never saw it go down on all 4s. During their talk with the park warden, Alan Dibb said things to them along the lines of, bears do stand up when they're begging for food, and they can walk on their hind legs. But all 4 were sure, and they insisted it was not a bear. As a matter of fact, I think Darwin, at the time, was getting a little annoyed at the warden's continuing suggestion of a bear being the creature that they had seen. In his written report, he says, the 4 of us, are convinced it was not a bear. And he also, later on in his report, ended with the statement, it wasn't a bear, okay? How tall do they think it was? Susan, 8 feet. Scott, 7.5 to 8 feet. Darwin, 8 feet. Shannon, 7 to 8 feet. It should be noted that when all 4 witnesses were watching the subject from the car, it is possible that the subject was slightly uphill from them. Whether or not this made the subject appear taller than it actually was, I think has to be considered. Could you tell if it was male or female? No. Susan, Scott, no. But then he goes on to say, I didn't see any breasts, but so I would guess it was male. Darwin, no. Shannon, no. But if I were to guess at it, I would guess it was male. Both Scott and Shannon assumed male gender due to the fact that the subject lacked female mammary glands. However, they cannot say with any certainty. What color was it? Susan, black or dark brown? Remember, this was at night. Scott, dark brown or black? Did you notice its skin color? I asked. No, 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 and no. Did you notice any facial features? Susan? Not really. It had a kind of a flat face. Scott? No. No, and no. How heavy do you think it was? Of course, you understand that guessing at the weight of something you've just seen is not easy. Well, Susan, heavy. 6, 7, 800 pounds, I really have no idea. Scott, I'm guessing 500 pounds. Darwin, 300 plus pounds. Shannon, heavy, at least 300 pounds. All 4 witnesses described the creature as rather thin in appearance, but big in general size. I asked them if they noticed any details, like about the arms. Susan, they were very long. Fingertips came close to the knees. Scott, didn't notice much in the arms. The legs had very little bending at the knees as it was walking. Darwin, long arms, well past the waist. Shannon, very long and very hairy. Did you smell anything? No, 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 and no. Did the subject make any noise? Yes, it grunted at us. Susan. Scott, yes, snorting noise. Something like a bull makes. Darwin, yes, a snort or a grunting sound. Janet, yes, some type of grunt. No, Scott described the sound coming from the subject as similar to the snorting sound that came from a bull that had chased him once when he was young, and that's what he was comparing it to. Susan later said in hindsight that she thinks the subject made the noise to let her and her husband know not to come any closer, as the two were walking on the trail right towards it. It was kind of like a warning. She didn't get the impression that the creature was hostile. She just got the impression it was letting them know it was there. Did it see you, and what was its reaction? Susan, yes, it made the grunting sound. Scott, yes, it made that snorting sound, something like a bull. Darwin, I'm convinced the creature was curious about us. I think it was watching us for some time. It wasn't afraid. Shannon, yes, I think it was watching us for some time before we noticed it. None of the 4 had the impression that the creature was aggressive. It was just curious. Did you report what you saw? Susan, yes. The next day to Warden Alan Dibb. He tried to tell us that we have seen a bear. Scott, yes, but he tried to convince us it was a bear. But I did think he was objective, though. Darwin, yes. I insisted on making out a written report, though. The warden did not request this. Shannon, yes, to the warden's office the next day. When I asked him if they checked for footprints, Susan said yes the next day, but none were found. Scott, yes, the next day, none found. Darwin, yes, the next morning, not that night. Nobody was going near the trees in the dark. Shannon, yes, the next day, found nothing. Note, I found the area was typical high mountain forest terrain. The path to the washrooms are hard packed with gravel and stones. So unless the subject stopped at a soft, muddy spot, I'm not at all surprised that no tracks were found. Also, I think the search for tracks took place in the immediate area of Site C3 and C4. As far as I know, there was no search conducted down at the creek bed, where soft ground, and it's more likely tracks would have been found around there. Then I asked him about the other vehicle. Susan, the other truck flashed its headlight at us, and as we drove around, 4 people were in there, and they were quite drunk. 3 of the 4 people told us they had seen the same creature earlier near the washrooms. Scott said the other truck flashed its lights, 4 people, 1 man, 2 women, and a child. And they said they had seen the same thing. Darwin, We flashed our lights at the other vehicle. Three of the four said they had seen something big and black when they were going to the washrooms earlier. They were camped in Area B. Who were these four people in the other truck? All my attempts at locating these people have failed. They did not report what they had seen to the warden's office. Also, the warden's office made no attempt at finding them the next day. Darren mentioned the fact that the other four were staying at Camp Area B, which is the next one over. Could these four people have pulled off a good practical joke and later returned to check to see if their theatrics were successful? I don't know. If not, then instead of 4 witnesses to this sighting, we actually have 7, but we don't know where half of them are. Now, since then, Scott and Susan have parted ways. They've divorced. The other couple, Shannon and Darwin, have since married and now have 3 children. Now, Susan Ray Adams and Scott, well, Susan doesn't mind talking about it. Scott, basically his attitude today is, I don't know what we saw that night. Susan, on the other hand, is a school teacher, and quite often in Calgary, when a school is teaching a class on mysteries of Canada or Sasquatch, they ask her to come in and tell her story, and she does, willingly. Matter of fact, just this April, I was asked to go in and talk to a classroom of kids, about grade 5-year-olds, about Sasquatch, and lo and behold, there she was. And she was talking about the incident, and she told me she gets requests all the time to go to other schools and talk about this incident. Shannon does the same thing. She basically sticks to the high school level. She goes and tells about it. Matter of fact, Shannon and Shannon and Darwin quite often, yearly, almost as a visual, go back to Crandall Lake. It's become sort of an annual event for them. As far as I know, Susan and Scott, the other couple who have divorced, have never, ever returned to Crandall Lake Campground. But as I said, when this happened, they were basically sitting around playing cards. At one point earlier in the evening, the cards blew right off the table. And they went to pick them up and they didn't see anything. And it was only about 10 minutes after that that they actually went down and they gathered themselves up and to go to the washrooms, and that's when they first saw the thing. Now, what we have here is a case of 4 people who are honest, intelligent, hardworking people who claim to have seen this thing and actually had the courage to report it to park officials the next day, and that doesn't happen often. Now, the warden's office, despite trying to convince them that they had seen something, a bear, or a person, or whatever, they were adamant that they saw a Sasquatch, and they still say they do. And they would not be put off being told it was something else. And despite the warden, Alan did, he no longer works at Waterton Lakes Park, he was also very impressed by the fact that no matter how hard he tried, he could not convince these 4 people that they had seen something other than a Sasquatch that night. So if this animal does exist, I think one walked through Site C3 in the Crandall Lake Campground in the May 24th long weekend in 1988. If the Sasquatch does not exist, then I think whoever these 4 mystery people were in the other vehicle pulled off a great hoax and came back to see if they had fooled anybody. So if it exists, they saw it. If it doesn't exist, it was a great hoax.
So there you folks have it. What do you guys think about that? You guys think it was a practical joke, or do you think that it was a Sasquatch? Me personally, I believe they saw a Sasquatch. They were adamant that it wasn't a bear, and I don't think that there's anybody there, especially drunk people, that are going to pull off a prank like that. I could be wrong. You guys let me know. I'm never going to tell you what to think or what to believe. I only give you the account, try to keep you entertained, show you the location. It's up to you guys to make up your own minds. Special thanks to Todd Prescott at the Sasquatch Archives and Mr. Thomas Steenburg. I will leave links to both of their channels in the description, and if anybody out there has a Bigfoot encounter or a cryptid encounter they would like to share and maybe have me make a video on, make sure you send me an email to willstarbigfoot@aol.com. And that's where we will leave it. Until next time, always remember, where there is a Willstar, there is definitely a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.